How are you just days before Christmas time?
I'm well, man. I'm doing good. I've been creating music and enjoying a new home, living in the middle of the forest. So yeah, I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to having a day to just eat food and do nothing soon.
So you kind of have like a Finnish feeling in your home if you live in the middle of nothing like we
I
do.
do. Yes, yes. I live in an area where we have eagles that fly by my window, bobcats,
Oh,
porcupine, bear, and the stream is running very, very rapidly because of the snow melt from the mountains. So yeah, I live in a area that any Finn would feel pretty at home at.
I was actually earlier today discussing a Finn that you know quite well, Tuomas from Wolfart. He actually wanted to
Oh,
send his greetings to you as well. He's a good
love,
friend of mine.
yes, I love anything that man does musically. He's a great guy. And Wolfhard, one of my favorite metal bands. Love that band. Killer stuff.
So now the year is almost over. So how would you like shortly summarize your year?
Difficult. Difficulties for various reasons. We had like a crazy housing issue. We had to leave our home just months ago after coming off of tour for various reasons. And that whole transition was hard. Finding a place to live on 20 minutes notice because it was an emergency situation really sort of gives you perspective on the things that you take for granted. Difficulty, but when you come on the other side of something that's challenging, there's a reward there. There's a perspective change. There's a gratitude that you feel. And I'm sitting in that gratitude today as we get ready to close out the year. And I look back on my trials and tribulations with a sense of satisfaction. I've learned a lot and I've gained things because of my suffering, because of my challenges.
But do you feel that for music you sort of need to suffer a bit always?
I do. And I know this is debatable for some people. I was having this discussion last night with a few musician friends of mine. We were working on a piece of music that was quite difficult. The time signature was insane. We were trying to wrap my head around it, and we're talking about suffering for your art. And one of the guys said, you don't necessarily have to. You can tell a story without actually suffering yourself. But I would tend to disagree. I feel like when I'm in a song, when I'm writing from my perspective, there's something that happens lyrically, sonically, that you wouldn't get if you're just telling a story. So for me, I do have elements of storytelling. I do have elements of writing about someone else, but it always has something that links to me in my suffering, or my perspective or my joy or whatever. And I think that is important. I think you can tell when somebody's expressing themselves. You can hear it in the voice. You can hear it by the way somebody says something that they've been there. They know what that's like. They understand that pain. And I love music that feels like that. I'm baffled if someone's able to write a song that feels super painful and they're just like, I wrote it about my dog. Like, just something random. I don't understand that. That's not me. I'm 100% one of those guys that has to bleed a little bit for it to work.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you next that could you write a, like lyrics when you are like super happy? If you are in like a happy place, does
I
something
mean,
come out or do you need to be sort of in that dark place? You are most of the times in a dark place when you are doing like Killswitch lyrics.
I will say this though. Yes, that's the majority of kind of where I come from is sitting in my darkness, understanding my darkness, and then finding a solution to it, is kind of the formula I like to use because I always like to inject some positivity. And 2 points. One, I think there are a couple of songs in this record that do not end on a positive note. I think of The Fall of Us. I think of Broken Glass, Where It Dies. How's that song called? This is Where It Dies, I think it's called. Wow, I'm losing track of the song titles. And I think that's important. I think it's important to put out something that just feels therapeutic and doesn't necessarily have to have a positive message. And then on the flip side, the song I Believe off the record, which is 100% a positive song. And I was in a good mood when I wrote it. I was in a mood of hopefulness and positivity. And I'm proud of that too. And I think you need the contrast between the two as an artist. Well, at least for me, I like the diversity of touching on different emotions, touching on different sonic tones, different genres of music, instead of just sort of doing the one thing. Like Killswitch is strictly this type of band. You know, we are this type of, and to more power to people who are like that. But for us, I enjoy the diversity of our sound. I enjoy the diversity of how we're able to talk about love in this area, and then like political corruption in this area, and maybe spiritual awakening, and the desire to understand our existence right here. So I like and enjoy the diversity of all that. So you can be in a positive headspace and write a song, but there's a way you skirt the fine line of trying not to be cheesy, saying what you feel. And I think we achieve that. Maybe I'm wrong.
So does the time always sort of like reflect your lyrics? Because now we are living in like quite dark times overall in the world. There's like a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, and I think that's why the album sounds the way it does and has the lyrics that it does, because I'm very in tuned. At least I had to sort of turn my attention to what we've all been through from COVID, the whole pandemic till now, the divisiveness, the, people at each other's throats, being divided, sort of political ideologies, religious warfare. Everywhere you look, there's something to be harped upon that is negative and dark. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, but not to get lost in it, not to allow it to swallow you to despair. Even one of the lines in one of the songs, Aftermath, don't give in to despair. You can't give into it. The record was very much about sitting in my suffering, sitting in the suffering of the world, reflecting upon it, and then moving through it with a righteous anger, where I wanted to sort of wake people up. Like, you don't have to think this way. You don't have to live in this divisive world. You don't have to shut somebody down because I don't agree with you. You can have compassion on that person. You can find yourself in a place of understanding where you take that person's point of view and you try to understand why they think that way, and maybe have a little bit of a discourse about it. Maybe you'll learn something about yourself. Maybe you'll gain some wisdom and understanding. The world we live in doesn't want that, and I very much want that. So to me, what I'm writing, the righteous anger I'm coming through, is very much of a revolutionary state of mind, trying to bring people together for the greater good for all of us. Because the powers that be, the people who are in control, name them whoever you want to call them, or whatever entities, beings, there is a reason why they are pushing through social media, through mainstream media, divisiveness, wars, negativity. Good things don't usually make the headlines, and there's a reason for that. So read between the lines, try to pay attention to what is going on in the periphery, and use your discernment to know why this is being thrown at you. And you can fight against it. You can become the change that this world needs within yourself. And it could be very simple things, starting with the way you treat people, your neighbors, someone you see at the grocery store. Those little acts of kindness and compassion have a ripple effect that can create a beautiful, positive change that you don't even understand. And that, to me, is where I'm coming from. If my music can resonate in any way to create some sort of a positive ripple, that is why I do it. Think for yourself.
Is there like some kind of like therapy thinking behind it when you're doing the lyrics? Is that sort of like always like a therapy session for you as well?
For better, for worse, yes, it is. Music is definitely my therapy. One of my many therapies, I should say. I think it's important to grow and to sort of admit when you're not in a good place, admit when you're wrong, and change your behavior. And I think people who don't do that, who get stuck in their comfort zones, who get stuck in relationships where things are not great and you just kind of deal with it, I've never been about that. I love the idea of continuing to evolve as a human. And I think that goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about, being open to hear people and being able to sort of change your point of view. I've changed my opinion and point of view on many things. Religion, politics, the two hot topic buttons that people just can't talk about. When I've had conversations about those two things, I've changed my ideology a little bit. I'm like, oh, well, I never thought of it that way. That's really interesting you say that. I'm going to do my own research on that because you said that, and give your idea a chance because I'm curious why you think that. So I think with personal growth, it's the same thing. Don't stay stuck. You know, the old phrase that I'm not sure if it's applies in Finland, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks is something we say here in this country.
Yeah,
And to me,
same here.
I completely disagree. You can. You
Yep.
absolutely can. You can change yourself. And I think it's important to adapt and to grow and to gain more wisdom. It's why would you not? Why would you want to stay stagnant when you can grow and evolve as a human?
Normally, the main reason is because that takes energy to sort of like re-evolve and do that. It's easy to be on that same bubble all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I would go a step further and say people are afraid.
Yeah.
There's fear in that, and I've always been the type of person to walk towards my fear. I want to know why I'm afraid. I want to know why people are afraid, and to me, that's exciting. I would never want to stay stuck in a comfort zone. No, thank you.
So these consequences like your ninth album to date, and obviously you haven't been writing like all the lyrics for the band, but still for like what seven album has been yours, or so has it been like more and more and more difficult with each album to write the lyrics?
On the whole, I'd say no, but this record, yes, this record was a challenge. This record was five guys trying to like really push the boundaries of who we are individually. You know, it was very much a collaborative effort from jamming in the same room as a band together for the first time in 20 something years to me openly writing lyrics and demoing and sending it to all of the members of the band, not just to Adam, and all of us talking about my lyrics, my ideas, the tone of my voice, the topic, and dissecting it. And you know, I had a lot of songs that were shot down, and for various reasons. And at the time, it was difficult for me because I felt like, did I lose it? Am I not good enough anymore? But that forced me to push myself and to dig deep and to sort of reevaluate where I'm coming from and to use different wording, to think about different concepts. And I think it made me a better lyricist, a better musician, to learn how to take something that you've created and allow it to die and to move it aside for the next thing was one of the biggest lessons I learned. And I give all credit to my guys. You know, they didn't let it slide. They didn't let me off the hook and say, "Ah, it's fine." It's like, no, this is good, but maybe change this. Or this song is just terrible. What are you doing? You're better than this. This is not good. So there was a lot of that in the beginning. And then when I finally hit my stride, when I finally get to that point where all of us were going, oh, there it is. That's it. That's it. It was that song Broken Glass on the record where I wrote it from a place of just vicious anger. And the song is very dark. And all of us were like, well, that's different. It sounds different.
Yeah, it is different song.
Justin came up with this really cool, you know, blast beats with this chugging slow riff. And it just felt angry. It felt seething. It felt dark. And when I first heard the song, I was envisioning a person with broken glass in their face and just blood coming down. And it clicked with me. I was like, oh, this is a song about abuse. I want to talk about the shit that nobody talks about, what goes on behind closed doors. And it's a song about revenge, which I've never really written about. And there's more than one song on this record that is about revenge. But if you're paying attention to the lyrics, I don't say what's really happening in the song. I'm giving you a sort of glimpse into this dark subject, but I'm letting you fill in the blanks. You know, so if you read the lyrics through, you can tell there's something dark happening. Someone's really upset about something. And at the end, you hear the words, and now I watch as you collapse. So what happened there? I left that open-ended on purpose because I want people to like sort of envision, what is this? You can apply this to your life in some way. Where's the situation you've been through where you chose revenge and what happened?
I read that Adam was quite tough for you when it comes to the lyrics, and like you already said that he was quite like pushing you. But are you a guy that sort of needs that pushing, or can you do it like on your own, or which way is like the best way for you to work and get like most out of yourself?
Yeah, I think both. I think there are some songs that I wrote and nothing was changed. But I think any artist needs somebody to sort of go, hey, like, you know, that's probably not as good as you think it is. Like maybe give that another listen. Or instead of you choosing that note, maybe choose that note. A good producer will do that. They're not afraid to challenge you. And I had four of them on this record. All four of those guys would come at me. It wasn't just Adam, because I'm writing a demo in pre-production and sending it to all of them, and then we're talking about the song, which we really hadn't done a lot prior to this record. It was very intentional to get everybody involved and make it a collaborative effort. And some of my harshest criticism didn't come from Adam at all. So that
Okay.
was new. That was new. But I do feel, looking back on it, it was necessary. And it, I think, raised the bar for us as a band and the respect that we have for one another to engage in sort of criticism and then continue to move forward without holding a grudge or sort of egos getting in the way. That's the beauty of a band. If you're able to do that, have that conflict, you know, someone writing something and allowing it to be destroyed and torn apart, and then you move forward, that's how you can create something that is
Yeah, the
unique.
best art.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that on this record.
Is that like the reason why there is only 10 songs, that you wanted to have like cut all that out that isn't like completely 110% satisfying for you all five, or?
Thankfully, we have four songs left over that we all really liked. But Adam was adamant. 10 songs. I want to keep it short and sweet, around a half hour, get in and out and have people wanting more. And then
Okay.
we'll have some songs in the back burner that once the album's out and everyone's happy, here's a new song. Whoa, where did that come from? So that's the idea, is continue to feed people stuff. Also, I think the songs that made the record really do fall under the umbrella of the title, This Consequence. It really tells a story. And the other four, they didn't really fit lyrically, conceptually. So I think there was a reason for it. Now that I look back and all is said and done, you know, I'm happy with it. And I also will say this too. I've only said it in a few interviews, but we're harkening back to the cassette tape days where you had, or even vinyl, where you have a side A and a side B. This record is set up where the first side, up until I believe, is sort of side A, and then you flip the tape around, and where it dies is side B, and it's almost feels like two records that kind of fit under the same umbrella. And I love that. We're still creating records for people who like to listen to records. It's not 10 singles. It's an album that's very painstakingly, you know, purposefully written and put together in a certain way so the listener can be engaged into a story. I like the idea of, you know, when I was a kid, having the cassette tape with my headphones and skateboarding and going for a long ride on my skateboard and listening to DRI, you know, or something. And you flip the tape around and it's like, oh, side B, whole nother thing. Let's do this. So there's a lot of intentional stuff on this record that I'm stoked on.
I tried to went through my vinyl collection because I have like so many boxes full of vinyls, and I actually have all your vinyls there. So I wanted to pop it up from like here,
Oh, sick.
but I didn't find them like this fastly. So I would need some more searching for it. But
Love it. No, I love it. I love all
yeah,
the CDs behind you. I have a bar area with a record player and vinyl. So when you sit at my bar in our house, you can pull out a record and throw it on the table and listen to it as you're having a drink. It's cool.
so you still collect stuff yourself as well?
I do. My vinyl collection is primarily old school hardcore and 1970s Jamaican reggae. That's kind of like where
Okay, that's kind of like nice mixture in a way.
yeah, yeah. I mean, most metal and stuff, I just listen to it on, you know, Tidal or Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. But to me, like if I'm going to collect something, I like rare hardcore stuff and I like rare Jamaican reggae. I don't know, just when I'm traveling and I see a old school Jamaican record, I got it. Or if I see, you know, like a 7-inch from a band, you know, from Belgium from 1996, I'm like, ooh, hardcore, love it. So yeah, I've kind of got my little the stuff that I really like. And then Tom Waits, I have all Tom Waits records. I'm a huge Tom Waits fan.
Okay,
So
so you have pretty wide and diverse music taste.
yeah, man. It depends what mood you're in. I think that's the beauty of music. It can suit your mood.
Yep,
Why
for
listen to
sure.
just one thing? That's boring.
Yeah, for sure. Agree. Let's get still back for a while for the album and music and vocals. There's quite a lot of like also different vocals on this one.
That
How
was
did
intentional.
you come up with that.
Yeah, I always like to. I'm a big fan of yelling. I listen to a lot of bands like the Melvins and Helmet and even old school hardcore bands like Coalesce, where the singer is yelling. Another band, Threadbare, comes to mind. The screaming and the growling and the vocal fry and all that. Everyone does that, right? So for me, it was very intentional to sort of put pitched yelling in because I love that. But to me, diversity is key. Doing a vocal that is interesting, but also fits the part. I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes I'll come into a section and I'll want to sing it. And I'll go in, I'll sing it, and Adam's like, I get what you're trying to do here, but you should just scream this part. I'm like, ah, shit. All right, what if I yell it? Let's try. I was like, well, let's do both. So there's certain lines in this record where I'm screaming and then you're going to hear a yell and then the scream comes back. Like just adding the tasty little elements to give your ears a break from just the same thing happening over and
Yeah,
over
yeah,
again.
yeah.
And even with Adam's voice, there's songs where Adam's just like, this feels like it's too samey. And I'm like, well, why don't you sing that part? He's like, oh, yeah. And he'll sing the part. I'm like, well, that's it. Yeah, it needed Adam, or this part needed to, or like a blast beat, like a very fast blast beat. I think of The Fall of Us, which is predominantly a death metal song for the most part. But when that chorus hits and it's straight blast beats, I'm like, why don't I just sing melody over that instead of just going, "Ah, let's make a cool melody that flows over the blast beat." So stuff like that to me is fun, and it just gives your ear something different to listen to, the nuances of the voice, and also what the voice can do to evoke a certain emotion. If you're writing about, questioning your existence and you're just singing it quietly, that hits differently than screaming it at the top of your range,
Yep.
beckoning to the skies. So it all depends on what the lyric is, what you're going for. And I love that. I love creating a palette of color with the voice.
I think you have always succeeded that with your albums.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate that. I'm trying, man. I really make an effort to make it not boring.
So before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a bit about the future. What does it hold for you?
A lot of touring. 2025 will see us going all over the place, going back to Europe, the UK, doing some US stuff. And then hopefully, the following year, getting out to the further reaches of the world. I really miss going to places that are sort of, off the beaten path. We've done places like Russia and Africa and China. I'm interested in doing that again. This year, it's not in the cards. We're pretty booked solid, but I'm looking on traveling the world again and bringing music to the people. It's something that is incredible to be able to do. It's very it's a privilege really, and something that I enjoy that has enriched my life and changed my perceptions as I travel and meet people. So a lot more of that. And then thankfully, my plate is full with collaborations. I'm doing a bunch of things. I just wrapped up on a song that is a 33-minute piece that has classical music mixed with doom and metal. Um,
Okay.
I'm I'm really into doing things outside my comfort zone, and I've got about 12 projects lined up where I'm doing vocals on everything from indie rock to death metal, and I'm loving it. It's fun. Just keeping that creative flow going while I can, because if people want to work with me, I'm down. Let's do this.
So, as a last question, because every media is now listing their favorite albums of the year, so I must also ask from you that were there like some certain albums this year that you were listening to a lot?
This year, did I have a question for you? Maybe let me look it up while I'm talking to you because I do have one, but I want to make sure that it's this year because I don't pay attention to years. I couldn't tell you right now for this year, but I will say this because I think it needs to be said. The most recent In Flames album came out in 2023, it looks like. I feel like that album, when it came out and I listened to it, it inspired me because I heard it in Flames that I felt was re-inspired, reignited. Maybe that's the addition of Chris Broderick, but there was something to that record that felt like these guys were like, here we are again. It's
Yep,
different
agree,
from
agree.
it's different from the things that they've done over the past decade or so. And it was like In Flames is back in a way. Like I don't mean that in an
It was
insult.
very solid album. It was actually one of my top three, I guess, for last year. So I also enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, so I'm pulling that one over. I'm going to say, and I told Anders this, communicating with him. I first of all reached out and said to him, "Thank you," because I feel like you helped re-inspire me as I was writing this record. I heard a band that we're very familiar with and we've toured with and we love. We consider them brothers. I heard Anders just really delivering it, and then Chris Broderick like just brought a whole new vibe to that band as well. So I'm going to champion that record. I think as far as metal goes, that's one of my favorites from the past couple of years. In Flames are firing on all cylinders in that record. I love it. It's a great record.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me, and all the best for the future. Anything you want to say as a closer to all the fans?
Cannot wait to get back to Finland. We always have such a blast playing there. The fans are incredible. The fun we have when we go out drinking after as well. Cape Coast, I can't wait to get back. I love Finland.